Morning guys, 15th webinar. We're up on the Zermatt Cervinia Glacier once again. Much better conditions this week. If you look around, it's a very busy glacier, a lot of teams training, and you get a good feel for the ski area. So yeah, down here we got the snow park. That's operational now and running. And the people are still skiing up to skiing down to the Trockesteg Zermatt side. And there's quite a lot of snow to obtain there. A lot of guys training, as we're saying. We're going to kick off about 11, but we just thought we'd run it a few minutes earlier for you guys to get a look at what is going on. I'm here today with Nick from our academy team. Hey guys. Nick Golden is a member of the rugby team as well in Verbier RC band. So Nick's up here, going to do some skiing. And he's actually playing rugby this afternoon, believe it or not, back in Verbier. How about that? It's not bad, is it?
Nice mix of the winter and the summer, ski in the morning and play some rugby in the afternoon.
Exactly.
Can't lose with that one, can you?
As we said the other week, guys, keep your questions coming in. You know, it's been quite useful this week. We had another few people that were writing in. Again, the age-old question, do I go for the 170 or 177 ski? After looking at some video of the skiers that sent in their clips, we managed to define exactly what ski to go for after checking their body weight, looking at their ability in different, variable conditions on piste. So that was a really good week for that. We're doing some other work, biomechanics work with people with some flex issues, some work with alignment issues. And we've done some work in the background this week, just some sort of, some bits on the yoga side of things in Verbier as well, which we'll be talking about later in the summer. So yeah, just hold tight for a couple of minutes, guys, and then we'll kick off. We're almost at the top of the T-bar. I think we pointed it out last week, but it was quite bad weather. But up there where you can see all the machines have been doing some digging into the glacier, that's going to turn into a giant slalom and a Super G run for the summer. It's quite a long run from the very top. You can't quite see it, but behind that big glacier just there, right behind it, there's a whole nother ski area, and there's a ski lift at the top of here. It's not switched on today. It kicks off from tomorrow, but that'll get access right up to 3,900 meters. So it'll be pretty nice for guys coming out. The hotel Monrev where we stay, where Charlie and Emily and everyone are, they're working. They kicked off today, so they started their summer, which is great. I know a lot of people have been asking about safety and security. All the way up here, where me and Nick started our journey, full credit and well done to the Cervinia lift company, the resort in general. Really high levels of security regarding maintaining the safety with COVID. So I know a lot of people have been messaging in, calling us. I know Rob's been on the phone a lot this week with people asking questions. Is it safe in Cervinia? It's actually extremely safe. I mean, it's probably the safest place I've been around the COVID. You walk inside a building, it's mandatory to have a face mask on, so everyone's really respecting that. There's face masks if people haven't got them, so it's not like you get left in the lurch. And then there's obviously the disinfectant, the alcohol at every single area you go to. So the guys here are taking it very seriously, which is great. I want to say a big, while we're up here actually, I want to say a big thanks to the guys at the lift company. They've obviously been looking after us since 2012, making us feel quite welcome here. So that's been a good thing for us. Rita in the office, thanks to those guys, it manages to get us working here on a very easy basis. Today, unlike last week when the weather came in, you got a really nice view of the Matterhorn Glacier. You guys can see up there in the background. We were looking at that on the drive up. We drive over from Verbier this morning, about an hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to go over one of the questions today that somebody raised last week that we looked at. We were looking at a few things. I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago on the webinars, but we were looking at getting people putting a bit more focus into their symmetry. And we know with a lot of people, unlike doing things like yoga when you're on one leg and you're trying to balance, you're really using the foot, you're using the muscles in the foot, the toes, everything to help you maintain balance. It's slightly different in skiing because obviously you rely on a really great boot fitter to make the footbed and get the ski boot fitting really well and get your cuff aligned and everything in the right position. Obviously we work with Dalbello, the guys from Dalbello look after us, and there's a lot of guys that fit those boots professionally, whether you're in the UK, Switzerland or wherever you go to. So that side of the equation is really good. What we're going to look at a little bit on today's session is getting a bit of work done where the awareness is raised. I know on that first week we did some work, just showed a few turns with your hands on your knees. We weren't really travelling at the right speed for it. But just going to show, a lot of people are asking, can you show us that on the move? And remember, I know a lot of people watching this, there's a lot of instructors that watch it and give and communicate with us, which is great. But also want to remember there's a lot of people watching these videos that haven't had a lot of experience skiing, and they're at the earlier stages in their skiing. So you sometimes get people using these webinars to go and get their work done at home, but their level of skiing can sometimes be basic parallel, not even there quite yet. So we're going to put in this week some more basic exercises and things that can really help skiers get a few things dialed in, tuned in to make the foundation of their skiing good. So I'm going to just show you two things. One of the first things I'm going to do is just ski down a pitch like this. We're not going to be carving it up, we're going to make some really basic parallel turns. And I'm going to show you what you can get done with the use of your hands as a tool. A lot of you guys that have had a less experience in skiing, you probably won't have the idea and awareness of what your knees are doing in between your turn. And as we said on the webinar before, it's not a given that your knees are just going to stay in a perfect symmetrical line. Obviously what we'd like is everything stays in a good symmetry between where your hips are, where your knees are, and where your feet are. However, when your head and your eyes are focusing just ahead of where you're skiing, you don't really get a chance to look down at what your knees are doing. If you did, you put yourself in a little bit of a vulnerable situation of not looking ahead and obviously seeing it from a safety point of view. So quite often underneath you here, that is blocked out. And as you may know or may not know, we get a lot of learning and a lot of changes taking place in skiing by visual learning. When you watch a video analysis session, you see yourself straight away skiing and you're like, okay, I get it now. I can see what the coach or the instructor was trying to get me to do with my legs. So from that point of view today, because there is a frequency that can move, a lot of movement can take place in the lower leg. The legs can move without you even knowing about it. So we're just going to ski down the pitch. The piste over here is a little bit empty, so let's have a cruise over. Just follow us across, guys. So I'm just going to pass the poles to Nick.
Cheers.
And Nick's going to go in front of me just for a little bit, and I'll just show you some basic parallel turns. Now, when I put my hands on my knees, if you're going to go to an indoor snow dome, which are all opening quite soon, if you're going to go there and practice it, we want you to actually use your hands. So, they're there to try and help stabilize and also monitor the symmetry. If you go into a turn and you find that your knee wants to roll, do some work with your hands to actually try stabilizing that. So we'll just make some basic parallel turns. We might turn it into carved turns on the second half of the slope and just see how we get on. But we'll just make some turns. I'll let Nick get ahead, and then we'll go for it. So hands on the knees, coming through. Here, straight. Of what you can do as a really easy exercise. Now, we obviously, because it's a Facebook Live, we're not going to be able to run a session like we would do if you're up here yourself and we were coaching you. But if you were doing this yourself, try to take on board, first of all, find a nice, easy area to begin that exercise with. If you try it on the easy area and it's a tick in the box, like actually I achieved that really well, then you can up either the speed or the gradient. If you're in a really steep area, obviously the gradient might be enough. You don't have to go so fast. If you're in a flat area, you might want to let your skis run a little bit. and go with the carving that works through that. So I'm going to do a bit of a more of a car version of that exercise. Nick's going to go across just the horizon and I'll build up some speed. Hopefully you can see 2 turns where you'd work on it at slightly higher speed. I'll let Nick get ahead. So from those turns, what you can sort of quite comfortably see is the skis working. But as I was going through my turn, yeah, I was getting the initiation working. I was making sure my hips were projecting and moving forwards and across the skis. But I gave quite a lot of attention to where my hands were in the turn. Something else that we can use, guys, there's a nice little pitch down here which I'll show you, where you could put a TheraBand. And if you remember the guys from Chill Factory, from the ski club there, they were doing some great exercises, some really big changes. And I can't remember what webinar it was on. I think it was webinar 8 or 9, but one of you guys out there can either, if you can remember which one it was, pop it on as a message so the rest of the guys watching can see. Because we've working through these webinars, we've had a huge amount of people working back in to viewing like the whole 25-20 minute webinar from previous weeks, and they're getting a lot from that, you know. So we've been managing to reference people back, and it's been very easy for us. So we're gonna ski across to a nice pitch further down the mountain. As we're going across, actually, guys, we'll just go and show you some of the athletes skiing over here. So follow us across. If you see some of the guys coming through, you've got a range of skiers up here, and it's great. It's for all abilities, you know, regional teams, club level skiers. It's not just for elite skiers, but people at higher levels coming through. A lot of the people from the region of Aosta up here training in their clubs. And what you'll find with a lot of these people, you certainly don't see people when they're at this level, like this young guy coming down with the blue and red. You know, you'll see great work with his legs, but his coach would have done a lot of symmetry work in the foundation of his skiing. They wouldn't have just chucked him on a race training course and said, right, go for it, guys. Jump in there and get around those gates as quick as you can. There's a whole process to it, which a lot of you guys should know, you know, especially guys that train with us, that you work your way through segments and you work your way through stages, and eventually you get your level there. So that's something that's great up here. For those of you that are coming out on the 25th of July, you'll get to see a lot of this going on. The other thing to point out, we might be able to show you later, where those coaches, if you can just see that on the view over the far side, just over the back of there. Normally we try and make a Mogul line, and it takes quite a lot of effort, but it's already been made. There's a beautiful 2 different lanes of Mogul zip lines, and I know a lot of people looking at training sometimes want to put a lot of energy into Moguls. For a lot of skiers, you know, it can be their nemesis trying to get down Moguls. So that's just something that we have got this summer up on the Glacier. So we're just going to go down to this pitch, and I'm going to put the TheraBand on. Take your time with Nick, maybe have a look at some races, and I'll get the band on and see you down there in a second. Okay, so as you can see on this, very similar to what the guys are working on the videos. I've just used a typical training band, TheraBand. I've been using this actually to do some shoulder rehab. Which is why I'm not doing a lot of work with poles at the moment. We've still got a little bit of time to go with this, but it's a great opportunity for me just to tune up and make sure my symmetry is working in my skiing. We never take it for granted. At the end of the day, if you ski with good symmetry, you greatly reduce the risk of injury when you ski. You know, it's obvious that if the skeleton isn't stacked and you take a big pressure shock, and you know, skiing is very much about partly predicting what goes on in the turn. So you manipulate it, you put pressure on the ski, you lean your legs, you work your steering action of your skis. But there's a big element with skiing as well, especially if you're a free ride skier, if you like the Moguls or whatever, if you go off piste, there's a big element of unpredictability. And it's the unpredictability which I want to stress for this, is that if you take a sudden pressure shock that you wasn't expecting, and it just suddenly surges through the boot, goes up through the body, and you're in your A-frame where your knees are closer together than your feet, it's going to be the side of the knee, you know, the medial part of the knee that could take a bit of a shock. You could get a crunch anyway. So ultimately, having good symmetry, it leads, you know, to injury prevention. That's a big thing. But because you've got symmetry, the performance enhancement side of it and your learning curve usually goes up a wee bit quicker. I'm going to let Nick ski down to the pylon where the guys are coming up on the lift. I'm going to make some turns coming down, just starting off with parallel, and I'll try and make some carve turns, and I'll go beyond Nick and carry on down, and I'll meet you when Nick catches me back up. Okay guys, see you in a second. So hopefully, I know obviously we haven't got a zoom lens on the camera, but hopefully if you can see from that, as I was coming through, the nice thing for me I was the learner, you know, I was the one trying to get my symmetry right. The nice thing for me, it was like someone was constantly sort of tap, 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 so I could have a lot of sensitivity of where my knees were. And if you've ever, you know, if you look back at some video of yourselves today, and like we always say, you know, we're really happy to analyze this over the week and send it in and we'll have a look with you, but you'll quite often find in between turns, usually just at that crossover phase, when you're about to roll across into the new turn, that's the part where we see some knee wobble happening. We also find it as pressure builds towards the end of the turn. So it is so important, and it does often happen. Some of the people were asking the other day about the skis, so I'm just going to show you very briefly about the skis. So I'm on a Deacon, so it's a Deacon 74. For me, it's a nice ski. If you can see quite carefully there, there's a bit of strength built into the ski. So if you're a skier that likes to try and get your speeds up, but you want stability, there's a titanium top sheet on that ski that will stabilize it. You know, for me, when me and Nick came up early this morning, you know, like you would do on a glacier, the snow was nice and firm. When I skied this in Verbier on icy pistes, that one will, you know, stabilize for me. It's obviously got the vibration absorption there as well, but it's a good all-rounder, you know. So you could take these in the Moguls, you can sort of, you know, push them quite hard on steep faces. And if you've ever had that feeling on a steep slope with the skis like juddering down the side, the construction on this really holds. So it's a real all-mountain, all-piste kind of mountain skier. It's not something I'd take off piste, but it'll do so much around the area and go way beyond just piste skiing, you know. So it's a great ski for that. You might now, just because we're in the right position, if we turn the camera around slightly, you can see the Moguls that we skied this morning. And if you're not sure what there are, if you haven't skied moguls before, there's like lots of little shadows coming down the mountain. There's a guy standing at the top, and that zip line, as short as it looks, that would definitely get you out of breath by the time you get down. So what we do when we're coaching on an academy course, we'll normally split it into two halves with a lot of skiers. They'll go down, they'll work out their line, work out the right movements. There's all sorts of different ways of skiing it. You know, you're really working some carve turns down there, and some people will be working on some carve and some skid in between it as well. And it's nice, it's a good tempo. So what you find also on there, before going into the moguls on a course, you may be at the side of the piece and thinking, right, you know, literally with a tape measure thinking, that's about 1.5 meters, 2 meters apart. You need to know you can make a turn 2 meters apart with rhythm before you even go in there, otherwise it's not going to work. So sometimes we do prep work off the side of the piece, getting the tempo of people's skiing working. And that might mean that, you know, someone's going down, they've got a great, when we look a bit closer, they've got a great right hand pole plant, but when they're put under pressure and everything happens a little bit quick, we might find in things like that their right hand, left hand pole plant, it could be one of them that's just a bit late. And if you're late with a pole plant in moguls, quite often that's it, it's game over. You don't get the setup right, a nice early plant on top of the bump or the other side of the bump, you know, it could put you out of balance. So we do a lot of prep work with that. Sometimes jump turns, sometimes short radius turns, and sometimes pivot turns, you know, just to try and work some pivot and skid in between there as well. So we may be doing stuff like that with you guys this summer when you come over. We've got another section down here, and then we'll get to the bottom of the hill. It's going to do the same, guys. I'm going to ski down, trying to keep the tension on this band working. Now, for those of you that go away and practice that, those of you not lucky enough to get onto snow, why not take your bounding, your plyometrics, or your jumping exercises, you know, take it with the band, go onto a gradient. You've got a really good grippy trainer, or doing it on some grippy, you know, like road or concrete, and jumping side to side, use your ski poles, but see if someone can video you and you maintain symmetry. I know it worked really well for those of you, Adrian and the gang in the UK that were doing it, and Helen, and you know, you got great results with that. So for me, it really helps. It switches on my, you know, proprioception to really know where my knees are. They're not just floating. And with a lot of people, you know, we sometimes see that position. We didn't explain that earlier, but the A-frame is basically that. It's an asymmetric stance where your knees are closer together than the ball and socket joints of the hip. And what it does with the ski edge is, if I've got symmetry here, if I lose my symmetry in A-frame, you can see the edge of the ski. It may tilt only 1 or 2 degrees, but when you're traveling at 30 miles an hour and you want a really lovely clean transmission into your new turn, the tip of the ski to pick up the turn, or if your skis are submerged in powder, you know, that tiny little bit of the difference and delay between the two skis, it's kind of game over. That if your skis are submerged, your skis will go in different directions. You'll get away with it on piste, not so much off piste, and that's what catches a lot of people out. So we'll get one more pitch here. Nick's going to ski down to the bottom, and then we'll round up the session, and then you'll see me coming towards the camera, and hopefully the light's a bit better than last week where it was cloudy and it's difficult to see, and I'll try and keep this band maintained with a little bit of tension around it for you with my symmetry. Okay guys, I'll see you down there. I'll let Nick get ahead. Okay guys, so we hope you got something from that this week. I can't recommend it enough at the moment. I know a lot of you guys are so wanting to get back on skis. when we woke up this morning and drove out from Verbier, that's all we spoke about on the drive over was like getting skiing. Getting up here, straight away, as soon as you've clipped in and you come to the ski area, you're watching everyone else going for it on their skis, ripping their turns, seeing skis that are better than you. It's such a good feeling of like, oh my God, I want to get on it. So the conditions are good. You know, we're quite late in the day, we're an hour ahead of you there. This place obviously opens at 7:30. It's still maintaining a really good grippy snow, and it's an early 11:30. So, you know, from that perspective, it's definitely a doable place to get to. But again, thanks, just going to say the same. Thanks to Knight Frank, our Gentex, Verbier obviously looking after us, Chavinia, you know, the guys in the office there, you've been brilliant, thank you so much. And obviously our Verbier partner, Ski Service, Fahrenheit, again, the resort, and our clothing sponsor, Plank. So thanks very much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week. We're not sure exactly where we're going to be. Could be up on the slopes, could be in the gym. We're going to wait and see how that one pans out. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. All the best.